Hi everyone, I'm Elias Martin from collectingjapaneseprints.com and welcome to Woodblock Wednesday. This is a brand new series of videos done on Facebook Live every Wednesday, and every Wednesday we'll discuss some element of Japanese woodblock prints or paintings. And today, at the very beginning, I just want to recap. We met for the first time last week, and we discussed some shinhanga, or new prints, 20th century Japanese prints by artists who were interested in creating designs in multiples, but also were producing prints that had variations in color. And so if it's something that you're interested in, I recommend to check out the very first episode of Woodblock Wednesday. So today we'll be talking about ukiyo-e and shinhanga, two artists, Hiroshige and Koson. And basically, I think it's neat to look at a subject that both artists treated and then see the differences. So if you're ready, let's go to the table and look at the prints. All right, I'm gonna flip the camera. All right, so the first print I would like to discuss today is a woodblock print by Hiroshige, and the subject is bats in the moonlight. And so you see here some really wonderful designs of two bats. So just flying around in the clouds with the moon overhead. And Hiroshige is actually known as a landscape artist. He created some of the most iconic landscapes during the Edo period, or ukiyo-e school. And so this print, as I said, it's about 1830, 1840s. And you'll see his signature here, Hiroshige. And basically, I wanted to show this because it's a bit of a departure for Hiroshige. And despite the fact that the artist was primarily a landscape artist, he provides us with a beautiful scene of these wonderful bats, flying through the evening sky. And the way that he does these bats are done with these really wonderful thin lines that are done sort of in an angular pattern, creating the silhouette of the bats. And that those lines building up the wings kind of give a sense of the bat's wings flapping through the night air. They also kind of give a sense of the wings are kind of fragile, and what you would expect for bat wings. And the print is done beautifully with some beautiful bokashi. There's that blue, the dark blue gradating into a lighter blue, and then there's the moon is done. And I'd say there's a hint of color here, but it's primarily the color of the paper that gives this pale glow, the only source of light in the design. And from here, the blue is lighter, and it extends into at the edge of the design, and the blue gets darker. So it's quite nice. And so, having looked at this, well, first of all, I'll just kind of zoom in so that you can have a look at the print. And so I wanted to contrast this design by a 20th century Japanese woodblock maker. So this artist is Koson, also known as Shosun or Hosun. He signed with 3 different artist names based on the publisher he was using. And in this particular print, we have a very similar design. There's 2 bats, so flying through the night sky with the moon in the background. And you could see, I'll move the camera back a bit so you could see both. So both prints were produced in the same manner. There was a publisher who hired in the first print Hiroshige, in this case Koson, to design this beautiful work of art, and the publisher hired a woodblock carver or carvers and printers to produce the prints. So it was a collaborative effort. Both Edo period prints, or from the ukiyo-e school, were produced that way, and Shinhanga prints were sort of a reworking of the older Edo period prints. And so the publishers, particularly the first one who started the movement, Watanabe, they were inspired by the ukiyo-e period prints, but wanted to add a modern element to them, particularly perspective and the way that the designs were created. But it's actually quite fascinating to compare these two prints to each other because they're so similar, and there's similar qualities to them. In some ways, this Koson is a design that owes a lot to Hiroshige. Now, the particular tree here, it's a bamboo tree or a tree with these. No, actually, not a bamboo tree at all. It's a willow tree, and having that in the foreground and the moon in the background, that's a very strong element in the design that Hiroshige actually popularized. And so if you see in this design, you see this element here that's in the foreground, it's acting in the same way as in this design. It's creating a sense of depth, where this particular area, which is probably the top of a roof or a fence or something, and it's right in front of the viewer. It's much larger than anything else in the composition, and then of course the bats and the interesting clouds, which actually echo the shape of the bats and animate the scene. It's quite nice and done in a very similar way. So we have the willow tree here with the moon in the background, and then the element of stacking. So the bat closest to the viewer is larger, and then this bat at the bottom portion of the design is slightly smaller. And so it's a really interesting study here to look at these two prints and consider the similar subject and how they're related. And in this case, this print owes a lot to Hiroshige stylistically, and also just a similar composition and subject. I mean, the fact that there's two bats is actually interesting, though I can't say that Koson was actually specifically thinking of Hiroshige's design. And so just to give you a sense, the Hiroshige design, again, was 1830s, and this Koson design was sort of Meiji period, so about 1910. And the last thing I'll point out, which is really interesting, is the moon is treated basically in the same manner. There's a little bit of pigment. It's basically the color of the paper with a touch of pigment there. And the same is in this print. You can't tell, I suspect in my video, but there's a hint of yellow in here. In here, there's a hint of like a warm yellow with a little bit of, I almost want to say kind of orange in there. It's very hard to tell, but there is a very slight coloration in the moon. So again, I'll stand back and just show you both works again. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on Woodblock Wednesday. If you're interested in learning more about Japanese woodblock prints, please join me every Wednesday on Facebook Live. You could like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and of course, please check out my website, collectingjapaneseprints.com. And I suspect, well, next week I think I'll be in Japan, but we'll see if we could try doing one live from Japan. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.